I think we are done, Tsepi, so you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. I thought I didn't hear Mr. Moditambi, but it's fine. I'll just take this opportunity to give to the bidders to also introduce themselves. Thank you. I'll start with Nomasonto. And then Basil.
Good morning. Good morning, colleagues. My name is Basil Ford. I'm one of the potential bidders. Thank you.
Diverse.
Good morning. My name is Superior Fault from DSAC Ventures.
Dumisani.
Good morning. Apologies for joining line.
Jika.
Good morning. My name is Jika from Southern African Youth Movement. I'm one of the prospective bidder. Thank you.
Osi. Osi, we can't hear you.
Hi, my name is Kosi. I'm one of the prospective bidders from Asandana team.
Kumo.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can. Hi, I'm Kumo Morojele. I'm from KM House and I'm a potential bidder. Thank you for this opportunity and having this meeting. Looking forward to it.
Lodiscan.
Good morning. My name is Nomatam Sangma Stamper from Lodiscan.
Undu.
Good morning. You.
Motlati.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Motlati Kani. I'm from DSAC Media. We do comics, animation, and based in Cape Town. Thank you.
Mpiwa.
Good morning, colleagues. P1 Mbembe from Vine Private Wealth.
Nasei.
Morning, Nontando Makobi from Polisani Capital. I'm using Nasei's accounts.
Noglunga.
Good morning. I'm Noglunga Ndawonde from DSAC Consulting. Thank you.
Nokwazi.
Good morning. I'm Nokwazi from Ndambu Financial Consulting.
Nomasonto.
Good morning, colleagues. SAYM, Principal Peter. Thank you.
Precious.
Good morning. I'm Precious Mabasa from Kumalo and Mabuya Chartered Accountants. Thank you.
Arms Audit.
Good morning, Togozilia from Arms Audit.
Sanele.
Good morning, Sanele Kumete from Absa Bank with my colleague Dumsani Mkonza, who introduced himself earlier.
Thank you. If there is someone that I left who haven't introduced themselves, can they please introduce themselves?
I'm not sure that my name came
from Grant Capital.
Superior Fagute from DCV Consulting.
Siyabonga Bengo from South of Chartered Accountants.
Zizi Ndombela, also from Soto Chartered Accountants.
Okay, thank you so much. I think everyone has just introduced themselves. We'll just proceed with our presentation. Then I'll hand over to the project manager to do the presentation. Thank you. And before the project manager
Thank you very much, Tsepiso.
Okay, maybe Ms. Mzansi, maybe before you come in, I just have to clarify something before you do your presentation. We're gonna allow you to do the presentation, then you have to be given an opportunity to finish your presentation, and then we're going to take the questions. And then after that, supply chain will come and present supply chain compliance, then we take questions, then we're going to close the meeting. So in that order, thank you.
I think Miss Basil Ford, you've got your hand up through your chair. There's a hand up. I don't know this.
Chair?
Yes, you can
Chair,
go ahead, sir.
I'd just like to know, the presentation, will that be made available or do we have to take notes?
Yes, I'm going to flight it just to make it easier. I think it's much easier if I do it like that.
Yes, but I'm saying when you flight it, afterwards,
yes,
is it going to be available on the platform or something like that?
Yes, it's going to be. It's Tsepiso, you can come in, please.
Sorry about that. Yes, it's going to be available on request. So you can just send an email, then we'll send you the recording. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Is there a need for me to flight the document, or you are okay in to take notes? If
It's
you don't
best
mind,
if you present, while the document is there so that they can see.
All right. Okay, let me just then flight it. Okay. I don't know if you can see it on your side.
Yes, we do.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much, colleagues. I don't want to take too long in doing this presentation because we don't have a lot of time. Also, depending on the questions that people might have regarding the presentation itself. So we want to allow enough time for people to be able to do that. I'm gonna take you through the background. I'm gonna take you through the scope, and I'm gonna take you through the criteria just before we are going to allow SCM to come in. So the background is that venture capital is an important source of financing for startups, companies that have a limited operating history, who don't have access to capital markets and financing for startup ventures or expansion. So the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture, which is DSAC, we call it DSAC, initiated Venture Capital Fund, which is the VCF, that is seeking to redress past imbalances by addressing the lack of financing instruments for the creative industries, and so doing contribute to economic growth, the creation of decent work and income generating opportunities for creative industry practitioners. South African economy needs to change from consumption-based to production to reach National Development Plan targets. It is very important that business models are incentivized that empower previously disadvantaged practitioners in the arts, culture, and heritage sector to derive maximum economic benefits. And DSAC sees building entrepreneurs as the vehicle to contribute to the NDP targets and eradicating poverty, addressing unemployment, and improving service delivery. A need for VCF. Why VCF? So a benchmark mapping study, which was conducted by the department in 2013, it found that while the creative industries make a significant contribution to the South African economy, these are significant constraints to development, which is the lack of access to appropriate finance was indicated as a major obstacle by 67% of respondents. 22% indicated that a lack of appropriate technology and equipment and market access were major challenges. As a result, the department in 2016 piloted the implementation of the Venture Capital Fund with an amount of 100 million rand in partnership with the National Empowerment Fund, which is the NEF. The VCF has since been piloted and evaluated. The result of the evaluation has provided a rationale for continuation of its existence. In response to this, there are two primary needs the VCF will meet, which is access to finance for SMMEs. The size of these businesses limits their ability to raise commercial bank financing due to their limited collateral, a lack of insight and understanding of the industry and history of financial performance. Number three, the role of a VCF. Financing a new and existing businesses in the arts, culture and heritage sector, and take equity share to ensure the viability of the VCF. To provide finance for assets and goods and services when a sale has been concluded. Financing of companies and ventures in the arts, culture and heritage sector that have secured tenders or purchase orders but have limited startup capital to deliver the service or goods or projects. Financing of ventures within the arts, culture and heritage sector with commercial value after due diligence process has been concluded. Facilitating and incentivizing the subcontracting with other suppliers with an aim to gain experience. Reporting job creation and contribution to the gross domestic product and generating return on investment. So the department will conduct an annual impact assessment of the program. Moving on to scope and extent of the tender task directive. The department requires the service of a duly experienced, knowledgeable, and legitimate entity that will partner with the department and financially contribute 60% of the total value of this tender. I have to repeat this, and financially contribute 60% of the total value of this tender in order to realize the objectives of the Venture Capital Fund initiative. To confirm that the bidders have read and understood the task description, they should be able to indicate their ability to implement and manage the Venture Capital Fund with the stipulated deliverables in the relevant column below. I'm going to now read the tasks, which is number one, increase access to and the provision of finance to SMMEs, thereby contribute towards job creation, which is provide favorably structured loan finance to eligible and qualifying ventures, to expand partnerships with other institutions, build a strong and effective VCF brand emphasizing accessibility to SMMEs, develop, implement, and effective marketing and promote a program. Number two, build an effective and efficient VCF that is performance-driven and which demonstrates good returns on investment, which is create, develop, and retain dynamic human capital with values and culture aligned to VCF's mandate, and which understands the unique nature of creative industries in South Africa, to build an effective VCF with robust and efficient business processes, systems, and infrastructure, and to build a financially sustainable and viable VCF by sourcing appropriate financing to the VCF. Number three, financing. Financing of the projects to yield return on investment. Currently, projects are overly dependent on government for financial assistance, and we all know this. So a mechanism to incentivize viable projects which show potential to be self-sustaining to support growth and innovation in the sector is required. I'm gonna move now to criteria, right, Tsepiso? Yes. So let me just scroll down. Yes, I'm here. Evaluation criteria. All bids duly lodged will be evaluated by a panel first on functionality, then price. The total evaluation criteria weight is 100 and the minimum requirement is at 70. For the purposes of comparison and to ensure meaningful evaluation, bidders are required to furnish detailed information in substantiation of compliance to each of the evaluation criteria mentioned below. I'm going to read criteria, then weight, then value rating. So number one, company experience. Proven professional experience with a minimum of 10 years in similar work. Bidders to submit letters of reference which provide proof of the above experience and testimonials with contactable references. The weight on this is 20. Value rating, I don't think I have to go through this. Number one, reference letter, that's 4 points. 2 reference letters, that's 8 points. 3 reference letters, that's 12 points. And 4 reference letters and more, that's 16 points. 5 reference letters and more, that's 20 points. We move over to the operating model. The weight here is 30. Provide a comprehensive analysis of how support will be offered to organizations, companies, either financially or non-financial as outlined below. Number one is financial support. Companies, organizations that meet the criteria for financing. It is the company organization should prove to be financially viable. Financing will be made available to all projects after due diligence exercise has been conducted. So the weight on this is a total of 30. So for financial support, we've got 15, and under the operating model, we've got, yes, we've got 30 in total here. So which is finance support is 15 and non-finance support is also 15. Non-financial support refer to a company that will supply technical advice and any other relevant assistance, providing training that is relevant to the sector and focused on solving the immediate problem encountered by entrepreneurs starting up, running, or expanding their businesses. This aspect must be a standing item which must be included in the overall report to the department. And then we're moving on to number 3, which is financial instruments. And here the weight as well, I think it's 15, yes. So financial instruments, depending on the SMME's stage of development and its financing needs, the VCF will provide different types of instruments, namely SMME loans, that is providing SMME loans for supply chain finance, which will be only based on signed contracts, orders with a third party to deliver goods or services. Loans for startups and expansions, for businesses, organizations that do business in the arts, culture, and heritage. And then project development loans. Project development loans will focus on financing an organization whose projects are certain to generate revenue over a short-term period, such as festivals. And then moving on to number 4, which is funding strategy, project plan. And the weight here is 35. Develop an overall funding strategy, which will include 1, project inception process and timeframes. That is 5 points. Rollout plan, 5 points. Standard operating procedures, that's 5 points. Public relations and marketing of VCF, that's 10 points. National coverage of the program and support to various arts disciplines, that is 10 points. I think I am done here. I'm gonna hand this over to you, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mzansi. We're going to take this opportunity and give bidders to an opportunity to ask questions by raising of hands. Thank you.
So we can go back a little bit.
Our colleagues, you will also assist. I only see a hand from Basil and let's check.
There's also a hand from Sanele, Chair.
Okay, thank you in that order. Basil and then Sanele. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you for the presentation. It was quite enlightening. I just want to confirm something. During the presentation, and you repeated it, there seemed to be an indication that the bidder must contribute 60% of the financing. Is that correct, firstly? And if that's correct, then secondly, what is the size of the fund? And I want to try and understand what that 60% means. Thank you.
Chair, I'm not sure if I should go or
Yes,
there'll be a
Sanele, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll move to the second question because the first question was the same. The question is around if the department has access to the intended beneficiaries in terms of the value chain of the industry, those that are supplying goods or services. Does the department have access to that market, and can that be shared then with the successful bidder? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to also request that my supervisor, Mr. Rabelani, can also come in to assist in responding to the questions. But just to maybe respond to Mr. Basil Ford's question, in that, is it true that the bidder must contribute 60%? Yes, it is true. And I think the fund, the total amount of the fund is 100 million, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Rabelani, if he's still here in this meeting.
Yes, I'm here in the meeting. Just to indicate that the total value of the contribution by the department, there's a noise there.
I think one of the colleagues must mute, please.
Yes, I was saying the total contribution by the department is 75 million. And then you can work it out, the 60% of that will then be 45. Then if you then add 45 and 75, then it will be the complete value of the fund. But the department, the contribution is 75 million. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think bidders have been responded. I'll take another hands again, which is from Motlatsi and Mulungisi, in that order. Thank you.
Morning again, and thank you for the time. I think there was a second question from the previous bidder around access to the relevant markets. I don't think we got an answer for that, but my question was around that 60% I apologize if I missed it in the document, but what would be an indication that 60% or the kind of things that would indicate that one has access to that 60%? So for instance, if that 60% is dependent on one being successful with this bid, what would the department need for us to show that that 60% will become available if these funds become available? Thank you.
Lungisi?
Thank you, Chair. And my apologies, I've just joined recently. I was struggling to come in. But on the first question of 60% contribution, may I confirm if the 40% contribution from the department, is it a grant? Is it a grant portion or is it loans? I'm sorry, I might have missed the better part of the briefing. Thank you, Chair.
Over to you, Ms. Mzansi. You can respond. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will respond to the last question where you are asking if the 40% of the contribution from the department is a grant. No, it is not. It is not. It is still a loan. Mr. Rabelani, I think there is a question that was asked by Sanele on the access to the relevant markets. Oh, yes, you can come in, sir. Yes, thank you.
Yes, as the presenter, Ms. Mzazi, was presenting, she indicated that most of these beneficiaries, they are more reliant on the government funding or government grant. I think on that basis, I would say yes, the department do have access to the market because if you look at the sector itself, we do the funding to the sector as well. Then we do have the entities as well, which does the funding to the sector. So we do have the access to this market. But we wanted to move towards this venture capital where we can then be able to look into this market in a different way than before, where we used to give the grants. So as Ms. Mizaz was presenting, we will then be able to have this venture capital whereby we will then be issuing a loan to look into those areas that were indicated on the presentation. Thank you on that. But then there was also a question as to whether the department contribution is a loan. I think Ms. Mzazi covered that as well. And the question regarding the proof that the bidder has these funds, I think the bidders might need to submit something, maybe a financial statements for a certain period, indicating so that when we evaluate this, we'll then be able to see from the books of that bidder that yes, indeed, the bidder will be able to have this contribution towards this venture capital. Thank you.
Through you, Chairperson, I think there is still a hand. We have Ms. Nokutula Fakude. You can go ahead, ma'am. And Mr. Dumisani. Then there's Tuli Makubani. I don't know if there's anyone else that I'm leaving out. I'm trying to see the hands that are up.
I also see three.
I'm assisting you, Chair. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I also see three hands in that order. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning to the colleagues and to the attendees. My name is Noktula Fagude. My question is around the same issue
We cannot
of...
hear you, Ms. Fagude.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, my question is more on the contribution. As much as I appreciate the contribution, but I just want to know as to your model. Do you expect the bidder to advance their funds first prior to the grant portion being contributed to the transactions, or what is your thinking around that? Secondly, I just want to find out, do you have focus areas or focus industries that are going to be priority, given the sector is broad and very wide? Number three, I just want to find out, in terms of geographic spread, are you, given the issue again of the broadness of the sector and the fact that the industry is in all the provinces, do you have preferred areas of focus, like you want us to focus on rural areas and specifically maybe arts and crafts or the film industry? Yeah, that's basically what I want, what I'm requesting clarity on. Thank you, Chair.
The next item on the agenda.
Dumisani?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, a follow on from Noktula. So with regards to, so I think you've explained very well that there won't be grant funding, it will be loans. So if it loans, I wanted to know the interest rate that the department is looking for as a return, and then whether they would consider the funding that comes from the bidder to be ranked first. So for example, if the application from the SME is 10 million and the bidder is to put in 6 million and the department is putting 4 million, is this 4 million behind the 6 million? So if there's a bid default, for example, the department will first use the 4 million before the bidder uses 6 million. Thank you.
Tuli?
Morning, everyone. I think I might be taking us back. It's just that the line was not clear. So in terms of the department's contribution, I couldn't make out whether is it 35 million or 75 million.
Okay, thank you for the questions. Over to you, Ms. Mzansi.
Sorry, I lost connection for quite some time now. I could only get Ms. Tuli's question, where you were asking what the department's contribution is going to be. Are you asking in terms of percentages or the total value?
No, the quantum. The
Okay.
quantum, yeah. Because I wasn't sure whether I heard clearly. I wasn't sure whether it's 75 million or 35 million.
It's 75 million.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you. I don't know if there's...
I'm not sure whether you managed to capture other questions and then whether you can be able to assist in responding.
Mr. Rabelani, kindly come in, sir, because I lost connection. I was trying to reconnect, so I missed the other questions.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think the question regarding the contribution has been answered, but maybe just to elaborate more on that, how the department envisages this to work. That say, for instance, the beneficiary is requesting or is applying for a loan of 10,000. Then it means when the loan is issued, the certain percentage on that loan, 40%, Sorry, Chairperson. That means when the loan is issued, the 40% of that 10,000 will be coming from the departmental contribution, and then 60% of that loan will be coming from the portion that is contributed by the bidder. Which means that if the loan is issued as 10,000, there will be a slice coming from the department, which is 40%, and slice coming from the bidder, which is 60%. That's how the pilot, when we were piloting this, how it was working. So the loan was coming out like that. I think I covered that area in terms of the contribution, how that will work. Then there was a question regarding the regional footprint, whether we are envisaging to get a service provider who will have footprint in certain area. Like I'll just give example with whether disadvantaged area, or is it in urban area, or is it in rural area. I think Zandi will be able to tell us on that, whether we are looking for the service provider who has a footprint in urban area or in all 9 provinces, the setup there. That was the question, Zandi. Regarding the interest, whether what is the department interest on this, interest rate on this. I think the interest rate will be considered, will be governed by the link, the link rate, with a prime rate plus what depending on the risk profile of the applicant of the loan, but that always fluctuates from time to time. But when you come to the return on investment, as the department, we are more concerned of the fund itself, how the fund will be growing, whether, as Ms. Mziza indicated, this is not a grant, so which then means that we must then see the fund growing at the end of the day, because when we pilot this, it was piloted as a grant, but we wanted now to say that let us see this fund moving out there and growing and be a fund that is self-sufficient going forward, because this government money will need to see the growth of this rather than to establish this venture capital as a grant. Because if we establish it as a grant, then there's no return on investment to the department. The return on investment of the department is to see this growing and having impact even in future, even when we are gone, as a result of this capital that we are now investing into this venture capital. I think I covered that area as well in terms of interest rate. Then the issue of contribution, I think it was, or someone also make follow up on the issue of a contribution. It was covered that the department has budgeted 75 million for this, which will be advanced to the service provider who will be successful in this process. And this 75 million will be advanced in the staggered approach, not as a lump sum. There will be a number of years that this will be. So at the end of the period, then there will be an evaluation, obviously, after the end of this contract. I think I covered the area as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mutitambi. I can see we still have a hand from Tuli. Over to you.
Yes, it's a new hand. So I think it's just follow on. At least he's answered partly what my follow on question was in terms of the disbursement, that it would be done in tranches. So I just wanted to get clarity over how many years will the 75 million be disbursed, and how long do you envisage the fund to remain open? And then secondly, the size of the loans. What is the minimum and what is the cap on the high end in terms of the size of the loans? And then also the period, the duration of the loans. How long do you envisage the loans to be for?
Thank you, Tuli. If the project manager can be able to respond to that before we take Mlungisi. Thank you. Ms. Mzansi?
Sorry, I muted myself, Chair. Yes, thank you, Tuli. Can you hear me now? So the loan is for a duration of 5 years, Tuli. I think I did touch on that when I was doing my presentation. Yes, it's for a period of 5 years.
Okay, and then the size of the loans? Minimum and the top, the cap.
I'm not quite sure about that because we had not discussed that in the department, but I think we would have to discuss that when we are dealing with this, with whoever is going to, to win the tender, to say maybe this is the cap, but I know that with the previous service provider, this was done differently. I don't remember there being any cap that was put in place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go to Mlungisi, I think we're going to take the last row of hands, and then I'm just going to hand over to Mlungisi to at least ask the question. Thank you.
Just through you, Chair, before Mlungisi and Mpiwa can come in, I just want to make sure that there is not any question that we did not respond to. If maybe there is someone who asked a question and you did not get a response to it, kindly just raise your hand and repeat your question. We want to make sure that we respond to all the questions that we asked. Thank you very much. I see there's Dumisani. I don't know if you have a new question or this is an old question. Let me go to Dumisani first through you, Chair. Question
Thank
or
you.
a new question?
No, it's my question wasn't answered. What
Sorry,
I
I can.
asked was,
I can't hear you clearly, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Stupid. Oh, no, I was saying my question was not fully answered. I was asking if there's a default on the loan from the SME, does the department lose their 40% first before the bidder loses their 60%? Thank you.
I don't think there is any expectation from the department in terms of the bidder, whether you are using your 60% first or you are using the 40% first. I don't think it's there is a way to do it. I think from our side, as we have indicated, we're contributing 40% and we expect the bidder to contribute 60%, and we take it from there. But there is no rule to say you have to disperse our 40% first or you 60% first. So we don't have that rule as it stands.
Yes.
Thank you.
No, the contribution I do understand. I was just saying for the loan repayment. So if the SME doesn't repay and they are in default, the department loses their money first before the bidder.
Come again, sir?
if the SME defaults, they don't repay the loan,
Yes.
the money first. So the department lose their 40% before the dealer can lose their 60%.
Dunisani, if the department gives you, we have an agreement with you as a service provider, because your responsibility is to make sure that people do pay. I think we're going to be requesting that that loan must be paid back. It is going to be up to you as a service provider in terms of how you're going to structure the repayment ways, when people must pay and by when they must pay this money by. So if we're giving you a 5-year contract, we are saying that at the end of the contract, then this is the money that must be paid back in the department. Obviously, you're going to give us financial reports that are going to be indicating that this is the money that was dispersed to the beneficiary. This is the money that was not dispersed to the beneficiaries. And this is the money that you are going to be paying back to the department. So that is a conversation that we as a department are going to have with whoever is going to win this tender. Thank you.
Over to you, Mlungisi.
Thank you, Chair. Just 2 questions and then 1 follow-up question. The first one is the confirmation of the bidder if the bidder will have an allowance for fund management fees or charging fund management fees from the fund or from the department, and if so, what percentage or what are the parameters of that of those fees? The second one is if in terms of the interest, is the department allowing the bidder to charge their own interest rate fees, or they must be similar to what you guys you will be determining at that particular time? And then the follow-up question, which I don't think it was properly responded to, in terms of the priority sectors, or if I might have misunderstood the question, but my interest is still remain that what do you have specific priority sectors that you as a department will prefer to focus on within the within your policy implementation program? Thank you.
Over to you, Ms. Msansi.
Can we just take the rest of the questions first? I think Piwa's hand is up.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for taking my question. It's simply that is there room for the bidder to take an equity interest where they see value or potential for growth in the beneficiaries, even if it's only with their portion of the contribution, and then have obviously the department's portion be extended as a loan?
Mr. Rabelani, are you here, sir?
Yes, I am here. Just let me start with the last one, where the question was to say where there's a room for the bidder to take the equity funding if there's an opportunity for the bidder to do so. I think what will happen after this process will be a contracting process, and in that process that might be outlined. But from where I'm sitting, I don't think that will be advisable to operate in that, because when we put down the contract will then manage the operation of the fund, indicating in terms of what is it that can be done and what is that cannot be done. But from where I'm sitting, if the bidder will then do different kind of funding, for instance, taking up the equity of a certain applicant and advance the portion of the department as a loan, but the portion from the contribution from the bidder be converted into an equity. I think it will confuse the whole relationship going forward, because the department is expecting the return on investment and expecting the fund to grow. That might have an impact there when we now reach the end of the agreement, when we're saying we need to evaluate in terms of how is the growth of this fund, and fund that the other portion is now in different format than what we put down as in the beginning as a contract in the contracting period. However, maybe even if we can have a deliberate on that and see how we can be able to classify it at the end of the duration of this contract. If it's easier, we can then be able, unless if it's not going to be much complex, then we can consider it. Then the other question was regarding the specific private sector that the department is earmarking. I think this venture capital will be operated under the arts, culture, and heritage sector. So all the applications that will have impact or that are coming from the sector of arts, culture, and heritage sector will be assisted in this venture capital. And the issue of a fund management fee, I think the issue of fund management fee is what will also make the bidders, the bidders differ when we do the assessment. So then we're going to look at that to say which bidder is more reasonable in terms of fund management fee. So that will be looked at. And then the issue of own interest rate. I think the environment or the sector of financing is regulated, and regulated through the call it what this act. There's an act that regulates this sector. I just not coming up now in my mind, but in conjunction with the prime rate. So that's where I think we should be able to look at that area to say that are we, in terms of the interest rate, is our fee in line with that or not? Are we not contravening the act in this area or not? I think it's fair to say that let's look at the issue of regulations and the rates that are applicable by law, and then will not be found wanting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Through you, Chair. Sorry, I keep on interjecting without asking for permission to do so. I think we have run out of time. I don't know if there are any questions.
Sorry, it's too late. I have one last quick one.
Yes, I'll only take one more question, colleagues. Thank you.
Okay. So in terms of the fund, do you expect the fund to be fully disbursed every year? Because I know with a lot of funds, they struggle to find SMMEs because SMMEs don't meet the funding criteria.
What
So
is
I'm
your
just
question?
checking what you.
What is your question,
Do you expect, so if I assume that there'll be a certain amount that's disbursed every year. from the department. So do you expect that disbursement to be fully utilized every year before you replenish the fund? And the reason for that is that a lot of SMMEs usually don't meet funding criteria. So a lot of funds usually struggle to fully disperse funds.
Thank you, Truly. Okay, I see there's another hand. Nokutula Fakude. I thought I was going to take only one question, but that is the last hand.
Yeah.
You go ahead, Noktula.
This is critical. Okay.
Noktula, is that an old hand? Your hand is up.
Chair, I wanted to check who the contact person is. That's about it.
Okay. The contact person is Mr. Mabaso or Zandile Mzazi. Thank you very much. Just before we respond to your question, Tuli, there is a question on the chat. Chair, can we have access to your presentation? Yes, you can. I'm going to talk to my colleagues at supply chain to see how you can have this presentation available to you guys. I think it's going to be easier. Mr. Rabelani, would you come in and we can respond to Tuli's question? I think that is the last question that we are going to take before we can adjourn this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we will be happy if the funds are disbursed, because we are saying the sector need to benefit out of this, you know. However, we are not going to influence or to promote what they call it reckless lending, you know, so that for the sake of disbursing the funds, we need to seriously look at the risk profile of the applicant and fund the application that qualify in terms of their risk profile. So if there's none that is applying or qualify, it will be unfortunate. However, we will be happy to have these funds be disbursed, you know, and from our side, in terms of disbursing or replenishing the fund to the service provider, we'll be looking at that, because you know, you are correct. We must not or will not be able to replenish the fund that is not spent on the other side. If there's no expenditure, then the auditors will also not be happy with us on the side. They will ask us a question: why did you pay when there's no movement on the other side? So it's the matter of saying, how do we push this? How do we market this? What is the strategy that we can put down so that this can be out there, and we can attract the applications who can qualify for this, and looking at the risk profile, because we are not going to it's not a grant, so we're not going to fund for the sake of disbursing. At the end of the day, there will be a repayment. So that is why the issue of looking at the risk profile comes in. I think I will stop here, Chairperson. I think I answered that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rabelani. I've put my email address on the chat, colleagues, and that is for the purpose of those potential bidders who have indicated that they would like to have a copy of the presentation. I'm very happy to share the presentation. My email address is below, is on the chat, zandilemz@dsac.gov.za. Kindly just send me an email. It can just say presentation, then I will just forward the presentations. And any other information that you request, you're more than welcome to send me an email. Thank you very much. Chairperson, I think we are done from our side. We are over time now. I will hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mzansi. I think I saw about 2 or 3 questions on the chat. If you can attend to that, I really appreciate. I'll just, as Ms. Mzansi already indicated, we are done with the terms of reference. And then I'm just going to come in with the supply chain compliance presentation. I can see there is a hand. If there is any question that you needed to ask, can you please just write on the chat, and then we'll be able to respond to you. Because we're no longer taking hands, we exhausted our time. So I'll just quickly do the supply chain compliance, and then I've already indicated the name of the tender, which is the appointment of a service provider to manage the disbursement of venture capital fund by assisting small, medium, micro enterprises that do business in the arts, culture, and heritage sector to meet their financial goal and help them to become skilled business ownership by providing finance for a period of 5 years. For those bidders that haven't downloaded the tender document, the tender is available on www.etenders.gov.za. And then there is a tender document attached there with the following documents, which is the general conditions of contract. And there is an SBD 1 with the invitation of bid, and then SBD 3.3. And then here, bidders just have to make sure that these SBDs are fully completed and signed, especially the SBD 3.3, because it's not an administration requirement. We're not going to go back to the service provider and request the pricing. So SBD 6.4, which is a bidder disclosure, and then there is SBD 6.1, which is a preference point claim form in terms of preferential procurement regulation 2022. And then bidders need to check when they fill the tender documents. And then in terms of SBD 6.1, there are points that they need to score there. If they can just scroll, we've got RDP goals as per our department. So in order for you to claim those points, your company needs to own about 51%. I'm talking about women owned, of which it shows about 4 points, and then youth, which shows about 4 points as well. People living with disability, which is 2 points. In order for you to claim the points, the company needs to own about 51%. And then all companies need to be registered on CSD. In terms of the joint venture, and then bidders are requested to submit a consolidated BE certificate to claim for the points. And then we are going to use the 90-10 preference point system to calculate for price and BE for this specific tender. In terms of the evaluation stages, this tender is going to be evaluated in 3 stages, which is the supply chain compliance. And if bidders can just go through the TORs, it shows that this part, the first stage, there is compliance requirement that will make the bidders not to go through. As is indicated, that bidders will be required to subcontract 30% of the total work of subcontractor from the designated groups. Initial screening process will be done, including subcontracting as a condition of this tender. So the bidders who does not meet subcontracting requirements will be considered as not acceptable and will be disqualified and will not be considered for further evaluation. So that's very important. So it's good that all bidders need to go through our TORs to understand what is it that is going to disqualify them. So the second stage of evaluation will be the technical proposal, where Ms. Mzansi was presenting the evaluation criteria out of 100. Bidders needs to score 70 to be considered on the next stage, which is price versus specific goals. So another thing is bidders to know that it's no longer a requirement to submit a hard copy of tax clearance certificate, as compliance to tax matters can be assessed and verified on the CSD report. So today we actually have a briefing session, which is not compulsory. So bidders who did not attend the briefing session will not be disqualified. So I think is the last page of the TORs. We've got inquiries there for bid inquiries and technical inquiries. If you got any inquiries, you are welcome to write an email, and then the department will respond an email to any request for clarification of the tender document, which is received no later than 1 week prior to the deadline for submission of the bids by the department. So when you submit your tender document, please make sure that you submit one original copy and one electronic copy served in a memory stick. And then bidders can just submit their tender document by hand to the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, which is based at Sechaba House, 202 Madiba Street in Pretoria Central. So our tender box is available 24/7 at the reception area. So bidders are required not to wait for the last minute to submit the bids, as late bids will not be accepted and will be returned to the bidder unopened. So the closing date for this tender is the 21st of September, 2023 at 11. So I think I've touched most of the important things with regard to these supply chain compliance issues. So I've come to the end of my presentation. If there is any questions from the bidders, you are welcome to ask questions before we can close the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see one hand, Nokuthula. We are no longer taking hands unless you want to ask a question.
That falls within supply chain.
That falls within supply chain and not necessarily on the presentation. Thank you.
No, it's on the percentage that Tsepiso mentioned. Are we specific on the subcontracting as to which sectors or any other that is related to the tender? Thank you, Chair.
Ms. Mzansi, I think that question comes to you.
Yes, Mr. Rabelani, kindly assist. Colleagues, sorry.
Thank you. I don't know if I got the question right, where the question says, are we specific in terms of subcontracting as to whether this subcontracting must be towards certain service provider from any other sector or only in the sector that we are in? I think just to answer the question, because this venture capital is about it's in the sector of financing. So now it means subcontracting will be towards in the same sector of financing, because there's a requirement there that are put down by National Credit Regulator. You can't just subcontract to any person who's not qualifying in terms of those requirements to be a certified financial service provider. So it will be subcontracting towards that area as well, with those requirements being complied with. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Meditambi. Is there any question regarding to supply chain? If there is any questions, you can just write it on the chat due to time, or you can just check the last page of the terms of reference. As I've indicated, there are inquiries there, so you can just write an email and then we'll be able to respond to your question. Okay, in the absence of any questions, I will just take this opportunity to thank everyone who came to the meeting. Thank you, project managers, for giving a presentation to the bidders. I think everyone has just gained information that they will need when they fill the tender document. So, and I just want to take this opportunity to thank everyone for honoring me as the chairperson for today. I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you. and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.